Dragon's Lair is a video game franchise that began with the laserdisc video game Dragon's Lair, originally released for the arcades in 1983. Games. Dragon's Lair is a laserdisc video game published by Cinematronics in 1983. In the game, the protagonist, Dirk the Daring, is a knight attempting to rescue Princess Daphne from the evil dragon Singe, who has locked the princess in the foul wizard Mordrock's castle. It featured animation by ex-Disney animator Don Bluth. Most other games of the era represented the character as a sprite, which consisted of a series of pixels displayed in succession. Due to hardware limitations of the era, artists were greatly restricted in the detail they could achieve using that technique. The resolution, frame rate and number of frames were severely constrained. Dragon's Lair overcame those limitations by tapping into the vast storage potential of the Laserdisc, but imposed other limitations on the actual gameplay. The success of the game sparked numerous home ports, sequels and related games. In the 21st century it has been repackaged in a number of formats as a retro or historic game. It is currently one of only 3 video games in storage at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Escape from Singe's Castle. Also known as Dragon's Lair Part 2, Escape from Singe's Castle is a 1987 video game released by Software Projects for the Amstrad CPEC, Commodore 64 and ZX Spectrum home computers. Later, Readysoft made the Amiga, Atari ST and PC versions. The game is sometimes referred to as Dragon's Lair 2, but is not to be confused with the official arcade sequel Dragon's Lair 2, Time Warp. Dragon's Lair is a 1990 platform game developed by Elite and released by Epic, Sony Records for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Its plot is identical to that of the original game. Dragon's Lair 2, Time Warp is the first official sequel other than Escape from Singe's Castle. Released in 1991 by Leland Corporation, its story takes place years later. Dirk has married Daphne, and the marriage has produced several children. When Daphne is kidnapped by the evil wizard Mordrock in order to be forced into marriage, Dirk's children are clearly upset by the abduction of their mother, and Dirk must once again save her. Home ports of the game were announced for the Philips CDI, 3DO Interactive Multiplayer, and Jaguar CD. However, only the CDI version was actually released, though non-playable demos of the 3DO and Jaguar CD versions appear on those consoles' respective versions of Braindead 13. The game was later ported to the Wii as part of the compilation release Dragon's Lair Trilogy. Dragon's Lair 3, The Curse of Mordred was made for Amiga and DOS in 1993, mixing original footage with scenes from Time Warp that were not included in the original PC release due to memory constraints. Dragon's Lair 3D, Return to the Lair was developed in 2002, as a 3D interpretation of the game developed by Dragonstone Software and released by Ubisoft for Microsoft Windows, Xbox, GameCube and the PlayStation 2. It is based on the original Dragon's Lair, and follows a similar story as Dirk must enter Mordrock's castle to rescue Princess Daphne from a dragon. Many of the characters and locations from the 1983 original make appearances in the game, along with new puzzles, rooms and enemies. The game uses cel shading to mimic the distinctive style of the original. Bluth produced 2 new animated sequences for the opening and ending of the game. In 2005, Digital Leisure created a new Dragon's Lair 3, which utilized 3D footage from Dragon's Lair 3D, but controlled via a system like the original arcade games. Dragon's Lair also led to the creation of 1984's Space Ace, another game animated by Don Bluth and his crew. Space Ace was also a ROM and disc upgrade kit for the Dragon's Lair cabinets, complete with new control panel overlay, side art and header. Characters. Dirk the Daring is the main protagonist of the first game and subsequent franchise. As a Knight of the Kingdom, Dirk was entrusted with the rescue of Princess Daphne from Mordroc and Singe because all other knights were killed. He becomes heir to the throne upon saving Princess Daphne. Following her rescue, Dirk and Daphne are married. In both games, Dirk is voiced by sound editor Dan Molina. Retro Gamer included him on their list of top 50 game characters in the category Top 10 Forces of Good, and called him, without a doubt, the epitome of the heroic knight. Princess Daphne's rescue is the object of the game. Adaptations. The game led to the creation of a short-lived television cartoon series, Dragon's Lair by Ruby Spears Productions, where Dirk the Daring was voiced by Bob Salata and the unseen storyteller that narrates each episode is voiced by Clive Revill. Changes in the TV series included the originally nameless dragon was given the name Singe. Princess Daphne now wore a long pink dress, and included some exclusive characters like Princess Daphne's father King Ethelred, Dirk the Daring's horse Bertram, Dirk the Daring's squire Timothy, and Dirk the Daring's rival Sir Hubert Blunt. Several enemies from the original game also make their appearance as adversaries, such as the Lizard King, the Phantom Knight, the Giddy Goons, and the Mudman. 13 half-hour episodes were produced and aired on the ABC network from September 8, 1984, to April 27, 1985. It was last aired on the USA Cartoon Express between the late 80s and the early 90s. The show was generally run-of-the-mill, but boasted an unusual feature. To keep the show in the spirit of the game, before each commercial break, the storyteller would ask what the viewer would do to solve the problem facing Dirk. After the commercial break, the outcomes of the various choices were shown before Dirk acts on the correct idea to save the day. A comic book miniseries based on the game, but incorporating elements from the cartoon series as well, like Dirk's horse Bertram, was released in 2003 by Cross-Gen Publishing, concurrent with a miniseries based on Space Ace. Arcana Studio published the entire comic book series in 2006, as there were 3 issues that were never before published. On October 26, 2015, Don Bluth and Gary Goldman launched a Kickstarter campaign to create a pitch video for a Dragon's Lair feature film. The Kickstarter campaign was unsuccessful, only raising $241,579 of the $550,000 goal, and was closed on November 24, 2015. The campaign shifted over to Indiegogo on December 1, 2015. Bluth and Goldman confirmed that the film's plot is a prequel to the video game series. On December 14, Bluth and Goldman reached their goal to fund the project.